So 2 weeks ago, we had one of the most, I guess you could say, anticipated fight of the year so far, which was Canelo versus Jermell Charlo. I think that this was more in anticipating for just Canelo himself, because of course we also had other big fights like Devin Haney versus Lomachenko, and we also had the opportunity to finally see Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford. But ultimately, a lot of people, of course, with Canelo being the face of boxing, really wanted to see Canelo in action. I think that this is going to end up being a 4 or 5 part series, and we're going to give you guys a little breakdown of like the whole fight in general, but we're going to give you guys the key elements or the key aspects that basically helped Canelo be victorious in this bout. One of those things that just kind of like really stood out was the fact that, and I think that everybody that knew boxing addressed this quite well, is the fact that Jermell was actually coming up 2 weight classes, and I believe it was like a 14 pound difference. So definitely the weight did make a difference because of the fact that Canelo didn't respect what Jermell had to offer, and if the fighter doesn't really respect your pop, doesn't respect your power, the fighter feels comfortable, right? Like your opponent feels comfortable being in front of you, and that's basically what Canelo did. In no instance, in no moment of the fight, Jermell did anything really exciting. He didn't necessarily bring any shock value to Canelo, and Canelo just basically stood in front of him. He stood in front of him with his guard up really, really high, catching a lot of shots that we're actually going to get into in the next video. Catching a lot of shots, just staying in front of him, and ultimately not respecting him and being comfortable in the pocket. So, yeah, there was instances where the space was a little bit open just because Jermell actually was moving around, tried to establish his jab. So there was that those were like the seconds where Jermell just kind of used to kind of like move around. I mean, eventually Canelo felt comfortable enough to kind of just get closer and closer and closer and stalk him and just land, very solid strikes, especially to the body, that once again we'll talk about in a further video, and overhand looping shots, one of which ended up dropping him in the 7th. And of course, Jermell's weight, of course, played a factor, because ultimately he didn't look as fast, he didn't look as sharp, he wasn't as mobile. I mean, of course, there was other little elements that we're going to break down in future videos that actually kind of like hindered his movement as well. But ultimately, I mean, Jermell's weight, of course, was an issue. Like, he looked very slow, very sluggish. I mean, there's instances where, like, you'll see Jermell throw a jab, and Canelo's just literally standing in front of him. And literally, as he throws a jab, bro, like, there's no pop to it. Like, Canelo's head is just, like, right there. And then you see Canelo throw a jab, and you see Jermell Charlo pop back. Yeah, exactly, bro. The weight, the power, like there was a big difference. It was a big jump, in my honest opinion. And I think that ultimately it was one of those things that really, without taking anything away from Canelo, because as I mentioned, throughout these whole, I guess you could say 4 or 5 part series that we're going to tell you guys why Canelo was victorious. I think that right there was one of the number one reasons why this fight was very, very comfortable for Canelo, and why Canelo made it look as easy as he made it look. Yeah, sounds good. So that will actually conclude episode 1. We're going to give you guys at least 4 more different techniques or different tactics that Canelo used throughout this whole fight for him to be victorious. I'm not really taking away anything from Canelo. Honestly, I really am not. But, I mean, the truth of the matter is the weight did make a difference.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Jermell didn't really look like himself. Like, yeah, as much as people want to say, like, oh, then why did he take the fight, whatever. I mean, it's a paycheck. Money talks, and ultimately, I mean, I feel like that was the only reason why Jermell took it in the first place. So, yeah, that'll conclude episode 1.